The function, the function is defined as y equals a over x plus b plus q. It has the following properties. Look, I'm laughing, but this question is going to make you cry. The domain is x is an element of reals. However, x cannot equal -2. Y equals x plus 6 is an axis of symmetry, and the function is increasing for all values. X is an element of the reals. However, x cannot equal -2, so we've got a bit of a restriction there, an asymptote, if you will. Draw a neat sketch graph of this function, and your sketch must include the asymptotes, if any. If any. But there are asymptotes here. Don't try and trick us. Okay. So the graph is going to look something like this. So whenever you have a fraction, look, I know this is not the best advice, but like 99% of the time it works out. Whenever you have like a fraction as a function, it's going to be a hyperbola, 99% of the time. And we can also tell because, well, we've got P and Q. This represents two asymptotes. And which graph has two asymptotes? A hyperbola as well. And this is also the standard form. It's the standard equation of a hyperbola. Now, our vertical asymptote is that x is equal to -2. So just ... Remember, an asymptote is an imaginary dotted line. So x is equal to -2. And well, the domain is x is an element of reals and x cannot equal -2. So we need to deduce a few things here, right? From this first bullet and the second bullet point, because look, ultimately, we want our horizontal asymptote. So y is equal to x plus 6, right? That is the AOS. That's the axis of symmetry. But how are we going to use the axis of symmetry to get the horizontal asymptote? Well, here's how. We know that the function is increasing for all values x is an element of the reals. So that means we're going to have functions in quadrant 2 and quadrant 4. Okay, this takes out quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. It's increasing for all the negative values. So that means quadrant 1 is a big no-no and quadrant 4. Sorry, and quadrant 3. So Roman numerals there for the quadrants that we're working in. 2 and 4. If the domain is x is an element of the reals and x cannot equal -2, well, that's going to be equal to this. Subbing your -2 in, plus 6 is equal to 4. So therefore, y is equal to +4. That is going to be our horizontal asymptote. And that's it. That's the entire question. Domain, axis of symmetry to get our asymptotes, horizontal asymptote, and that's it. That's the entire question. It's a level 4 broken down.